All the way to prime time, that's right, that's where we headed. The #1 progressive talk show, don't you forget.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm your host, Jake Hughes. J.R. Jackson's producing, and Jesus Godoy is directing. Look, we got a fun and exciting hour ahead for you guys. And I want to start with some of the news that's coming out right now as we speak. And that's on health care. The Senate just beat back an amendment by Senator Ben Nelson, Democrat of Nebraska, on abortion restrictions. This is the same one, roughly speaking, that passed the House. It's called Stupak-Pitts Amendment, and said, Stupak-Pitts, right? And it said that you cannot even pay for an abortion. I should put it this way. It's not that you can't pay for an abortion. It's that you can't pay for insurance that would pay for an abortion if that insurance is going to be part of this massive insurance market exchange that's going to happen. So that would really affect your ability to get an abortion in the country. But that failed in the Senate today. So that's a good news. Now we get to the questionable news. I don't say that it's bad news, but it's definitely questionable. So they were supposed to, by the end of today, actually, get to the point where they had a definitive conclusion on the public option. Yes or no, could you get the 60 senators, could you not get it, right? Well, it doesn't look good. And so right now they're in the middle of finding new compromises. Now, as Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio has said, we're on our 4th compromise, right? We've already compromised 4 times, this would be the 5th. Now, it's already watered down that it only applies to 5% of the country, starts in 2014, and would allow states to opt out of it, okay, if they didn't want it. And the list goes on and on of things that didn't happen and further compromises. Well, even this incredibly weak version of it, it looks like is not going to pass. For the moment being, that's what it looks like according to people that have access to the Senate negotiations. They've got 5 liberal senators and 5 conservative Democratic senators in the room trying to work this out, and if they can all agree to something, presumably it'll get the 60 votes that it needs, right? So instead they're going with another option. And they're saying, well, look, if we throw the public option under the bus, how about if we expand Medicare so that it covers people that are not just 65, but all the way down to 55? So we'll give some more subsidies, but on top of that, you could buy into Medicare by paying a certain premium, and so you're expanding the number of people getting government care in some way. Now, of course, that also needs a compromise. You can't just, you need a 6th layer of compromise, right? Because anytime the liberals say, maybe, the conservatives go, oh, no, wait, we won't agree to it. No, you got to water it down even more. So the way they would water it down is only people who can't get insurance otherwise, pre-existing conditions, et cetera, and they'd get catastrophic coverage. Okay. Now, do you understand what's happening here? If you don't, let me spell it out for you. These are the insurance companies saying, hey, you know what? Not such a bad idea. We'll take the people over 55 who also get sick, who we don't want to cover, and we'll dump it in the government's lap. And then if the government has trouble paying for it, we'll say, oh, well, I see that government doesn't work. You need to go to us more. Well, yeah, because you gave government the oldest, sickest people in the country, and of course they're going to have more costs. You understand the games that are being played here? Now, what's absolutely, at this point, is undeniable. The private industry in this country that does health insurance is scared to death over the public option. Even this incredibly watered down, weak version of the public option, they're like, no way, under no circumstances. We didn't buy all these politicians for no reason. We are not going to allow this public option. I don't care if it covers 0.5% of the country in the year 2050 and only people in Alabama can do it. No. Okay, no public option. That goes to show you, they're scared to death that it's going to work. It's actually going to help you on lower costs. Because what's their #1 motive? And it's normal, it's fine, it's capitalism. The #1 motive is profit motive. And so they think, oh my God, if we have to compete with a public option, we'll never be able to compete. That'll lower costs, that'll lower profits, and that'll be the end of us. So, okay, so now you know. And in this great battle between the people, because as I've told you now, dozens of polls including the last one, 60% of the American people, that's a huge percentage, saying in favor of the public option. Because then you got people against, you got people who aren't sure, people who've never even heard of it, and you still get 60% saying yes, damn it, we want the public option, and they're going to lose. That huge, because what do we live in a democracy? We don't live in a democracy. No, we live in a system where our senators and our congressmen, as soon as they win office, are immediately bought by the highest bidder. So, yeah, I mean, look, we'll get experts on the show. That's what we do, right? We'll talk whether this expansion of Medicare is a good thing, and there are some liberals out there who think it is, of course, and I get the value of it, and Howard Dean is saying, hey, listen, you know, he certainly doesn't like the public option being killed. He hasn't agreed to that. He hasn't signed off on that in any way. But he likes the expansion of Medicare because they think ultimately that might be the better way to go if you keep expanding Medicare. But the health insurance companies aren't stupid. They know what to tell their senators that they've bought. So they tell them, hey, make sure that you take the worst cases, the ones we don't even want to cover anyway. And look, if they do this as opposed to the public option, you like Young Turks guarantees? I'll give you a Young Turks guarantee. It won't cover everybody from 55 to 65. No way. Those were the initial reports, and that's what they're lobbying for and fighting for, et cetera. No way. No. Here's what it's going to cover. It's going to cover, like I said, the sick, the people who can't get pre-existing condition, the ones that need catastrophic insurance, et cetera, et cetera. The ones that the insurance companies want to dump anyway. Okay? And then they'll turn around and say, oh, you see that? Government. They have so many costs over there in healthcare. We gave all the sick ones. That's so funny. We gave the sick ones. In the old, take oh, no, compromise. Oh, well, what can I do? All right, you got me, big guy. Compromise, okay. All right, let's see what happens. And on the upside, at least this starts, theoretically, if it passes, and this is just talks right now. We don't know if it's going to happen. The progressives are pushing that it starts immediately. So instead of starting in 2014 as the public option would, this would start in 2010. So right away, next year. So those are the upsides. But look, that doesn't help me. I mean, I've told you from the get-go, right? A part of this is that I want to help the American public. I want to do the right policy, et cetera. The other part of it is that I'm one of you guys. I'm an actual American who has trouble with health insurance, right? We all pay a lot, et cetera, right? And we got employees here at the Young Turks. We want to cover them. This doesn't help us. We're not 55, okay? So is our insurance premiums going to continue to go up? Yeah. And it leaves the system intact. That's my problem. So is private insurance still going to be reigning? Yes. Is there going to be any effective challenge to them? No. Are they going to continue to, raise your prices? Yes. It drives me crazy. So, all right. No, look, there's some smart people in the country. Let me go on to the next issue here within healthcare. Nate Silver is one of the most respected guys who track polling, and so obviously very relevant to politics. He does the website 538.com, and he was very accurate with the elections, et cetera. That's why he's gotten a lot of respect now. Anyway, he noticed something that to me was incredibly obvious from the get-go, but now that he's noticed it, people are going to go, oh, yeah. He looked at the numbers for people who say that they are not supporting this version of healthcare. And he was a genius that figured out, hey, you know what? Some of those people are not supporting this healthcare because it doesn't go far enough. They think that the healthcare reform has to be bigger. And you think, well, of course, right? No, not of course. The rest of the media had always assumed, and Nate admits to his credit, that he had assumed that everybody opposing the healthcare reform were conservatives, and that the problem was the plan was too liberal. I mean, we live in this, there's two Americas. You know how John Edwards used to talk about two Americas? Sorry to bring up John Edwards. But I'm not talking about Edwards' two Americas. There's the real America where we keep telling posters and we keep voting and we keep winning elections based on the ideas that we all agree on, right? And then there's the Washington, D.C. America where, no, none of that applies. That's not true. No. Look, everybody's conservative, and the idea that the media would be too conservative rather than too liberal, who would say that? No, that's crazy. That Barack Obama's plans that he's pushing for are too conservative and not too liberal? Oh, there's no way. No. And then when they actually see it in the numbers, they see it in the polls, they're like, get out of here, really? Turns out people are pissed that this plan isn't liberal enough. Who would have known? Well, if you looked at the goddamn numbers, you'd have known. Can you tell I get frustrated sometimes? By the way, look at this. I mean, here's a headline. It's from Huffington Post. So I'm not getting on them, but it's perfectly representative. Senate Dems may open up Medicare, what I was just telling you about a second ago, to pacify progressives. Are you looking forward to being pacified? Oh, no. All that stuff we told you to get elected. Well, of course we weren't going to do that. No, the question is, how do we pacify you so that you keep voting for us? Okay, so now the Republicans think that they had a cute little trick. By the way, before I do this part of it, I should add one last thing to why they look like they can't get the public option through. It's Lieberman. He just won't bend, right? And now there are a couple of others, and Nelson and Landrieu. But look, my reading of it is you can get Nelson and Landrieu and Lincoln to bend. You can do it, okay? But Lieberman, son of a bitch, who just says no public option, no trigger, no nothing, under no circumstances, okay? So then you got to go get Snow, who's a Republican from Maine. And if you're going to go to Snow, and then Snow says no public option under any circumstances. So you just can't get to 60. Then you go back to Harry Reid and you say, who cares about 60? Get it with 50. Go through reconciliation. And he says that would be impolite. Are you looking forward to being pacified, right? Impolite. By the way, when George Bush, look, I've said this before. I got to say it every time because apparently it's not sticking with people, right? Because right now the media treats reconciliation as like the craziest thing that ever happened. I mean, that's totally extreme. Filibusters are totally normal. Remember, when the Republicans were in charge, filibusters were extreme. Now they're totally normal. Now, reconciliation is totally extreme. When the Republicans were in charge, reconciliation was the most normal thing in the world. What is that? That's passing bills with only, a simple majority if it involves the budget. Guess what? Everything involves the budget. You can pass everything through reconciliation. And so could they do health care? Yes. Would they have to change a couple things? Yes. I'm not saying that it's perfect, and I'm not saying it has no problems, but can it be done? Abso-frickin-lutely, right? You know what George Bush passed through reconciliation? The largest tax cut in U.S. history. Okay? Oh, Democrats have a problem with this guy or that guy. Who cares? Who cares about them? Filibuster my ass. Here. Reconciliation. We passed the largest tax cut in history, and it destroys the deficit. It takes this giant surplus and turns it into a giant deficit, right? And then the Republicans talk about, oh, boo-hoo, deficit, oh. There's such, man, I'm worked up, man. I'm worked up. Look, I want to go to war. Somebody help me out here. Because, look, the wars after next year, after 2010, okay, you know how much the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have cost us since we started the Afghanistan war? Okay, $1 trillion. How much of that was paid? None. We borrowed all of it. Well, did that have to be deficit neutral? Did we have to worry about any of that? No. No. Deficit doesn't matter at all when you go to war. Well, that helps the defense industry. They're going to get fat off that. And all those private contractors, they said, everybody's going to get fat and rich off that. That doesn't have to be deficit neutral at all. No, oh, you're trying to help American people. Oh, no, that's got to be deficit neutral. Well, it is. We passed something, it's got a public option in it, and that helps with the deficit. It makes it deficit neutral. How about that? Nope. No, we're going to pretend that that's a deficit problem. And the thing that I get most mad at is the media, because they're supposed to be the refs. They're supposed to say, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. On the one hand, you spent $1 trillion and didn't say a word about the deficit. On the other hand, this thing reduces the deficit. The health care plan, the House version and the Senate version, with the public options in it, it reduces the deficit. You see what I'm saying? I'm worked up. It reduces the deficit. How much clearer do I have to be? And yet the idiots in the media, the absolute morons in the media, come out there and they're like, oh, well, health care, the problem is the deficit. We got a problem with the deficit, and so healthcare, maybe we can't do that because it costs a lot of money. Oh, no, war, no, don't worry about it. Shh, that doesn't cost any money. these guys aren't reps. And then they get surprised. Media is too liberal. All right. Listen, let's talk to a Democratic Congressman Yarmouth, when we come back. Let's see if he can calm me down. Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and we are now going to talk to Congressman John Yarmouth. He's from Kentucky's 3rd District. Congressman Yarmouth, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Hey, great to be back with you.
Great to have you here. Before I get to the economy and jobs, which is what I know we want to talk about, I got to ask you a question about what's happening in the Senate on this health care issue. Now, they're now saying the public option doesn't look doable, but let's not get back into that. Let's not worry too much about that. I want to get your thoughts on the new compromise they're offering, which is expanding Medicare to 55. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, this is actually probably exactly what we need. I mean, this really is a robust public option, because you're talking about the same kind of standards for pricing that would have been in the robust public option earlier. The only difference here is you're not extending it to everybody. But clearly, in terms of for those of us who really think we ought to end up in a single-payer system, this is a far better compromise than a very weak public option. Well, because it brings more people into the public system. It actually helps stabilize Medicare. I mean, I can't believe these fools are saying this could jeopardize Medicare. You're bringing in healthier people who will help balance the more intensive users of health care that are in the older population. So I think it's a terrific compromise. It's not what everybody would want, because we've still got all those people between 27 now and 55 who would be buying insurance in the exchange. But again, I think this sets us on a course. I think that's the right direction.
Here's the problem, Congressman Yarmouth. My prediction earlier in the show was that they're not going to do that. They're going to make you compromise again. And what they're going to say is, oh yeah, take people above 55, but only the ones we don't want to cover, the ones that have pre-existing conditions, need some sort of catastrophic coverage, etc. So take the sickest people from 55 to 65. That'll be the compromise. And
I don't exactly know how you'd do that. You'd run into all sorts of probably civil rights issues if you tried to do that. But again, I think it's a very, very promising approach, and let's see where it goes. All
right, that's a positive note. So no, and I think your perspective is very important. So I'm glad to get that from you. All right, so now let's talk about the economy and jobs. Obviously, the president's under fire to create more jobs to get the economy going quicker, but he's also under some kind of weird fire where he should do nothing, according to the Republicans, except cut taxes. So, and then at the same time control the deficit. So none of that makes any sense.
The Republicans are amazing. They think that if you give a tax break or a tax cut, that it doesn't make the deficit worse. I don't get their math. I mean, I don't think that many of them majored in math. If you reduce tax revenues either with a cut or by giving a tax deduction or a tax credit, you are worsening the deficit. But they don't really care much about intellectual consistency in their arguments.
So now the thing is, Representative Yarmouth, I do care about the deficit, right? Now, but at the same time, I get the urgency of our current recession, obviously. So how do we balance those two things?
Right, and the only thing, for the last 3 months, every business person I've talked to, I've asked, what should we do about creating jobs? What ideas do you have? And basically, nobody has any good ideas. The fundamental problem in our economy is that we're 75% consumer based. We're based on consumer spending, and until we can increase the demand, then businesses aren't going to hire people. And while I think infrastructure development and spending is a great public policy, it really only stimulates jobs in one sector, and that's the construction trade. So, and there are a lot of people losing jobs in the service economy and in kind of the creative society and advertising agencies and throughout the rest of the economy, and we have to worry about that as well. So, I applaud what the president's doing, but we've got to do more. And healthcare, I think, is a huge part of it, because as I tell all my people, every dollar that goes to healthcare, when healthcare is inflating at 15% a year, as it is this year, Every dollar that goes to health care is a dollar. It's not being spent on a Ford. It's a dollar. It's not being spent on a GE refrigerator. It's a dollar. It's not being spent, in my economy, on Brown-Forman bourbon. I mean, and people have to come to grips with this. Healthcare reform is a vital part of job creation because all that money that's being spent on healthcare is being taken away from the disposable income of the vast majority of the American people. And that's the big consumption gap we have in this country.
We're talking to U.S. Congressman John Yarmuth, and I mean, look, you and I happen to agree on a lot of things. That's why I like talking to you. But those are really smart points. I mean, at least I think they are because I agree with them. But you're right. I mean, as I look at the jobs program that the President is suggesting, it stimulates jobs in the construction field. But I'm at a loss. I don't know what to tell the audience because I'm supposed to have all the smart ideas on this program as to how we stimulate jobs in other fields. And it's a tough nut to crack.
It is. I mean, it's tough, and and I hate to agree with Republicans at all, but there is a limit to what government can do in stimulating the economy, and the tools that are normally available to the government, which are reducing interest rates, or cutting taxes, are not available to us. We're already charging basically nothing for money, and taxes are actually very low. And so there's really not much we can do to stimulate the economy except two things. One is I think we need to make credit more widely available, particularly to small businesses because the banks aren't lending. And secondly, we need to give the business community some predictability. That's what I hear most from the business people I talk to is we just want to know what the rules are. Whatever they are, we'll accommodate. We just want to know they're not going to change every year.
Well,
whether that's tax policy or energy policy or healthcare policy, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
See, Congressman, that's one of the points that I want to emphasize here, because people from my perspective, I get that you can't magically just, as Bush would say, there's no magic wand that says jobs,
right?
In his own goofy way, right?
Right.
And there are different ways to stimulate jobs, et cetera. But what drives people crazy, and it drives me crazy, is at the same time we see the Wall Street guys are back in business, right? And they took all the money and they got all the bonuses and they're still making record amount of money, but they won't lend. So then it makes me think, which is reasonable, hey, we did this the wrong way, that we gave it to the wrong guys and it didn't accomplish our objective. So is there a way to fix that?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm introducing a bill next week that would actually force the SBA, Small Business Administration, to make direct loans to small businesses and bypass the banks and lend it to them at the same Fed rate that the Wall Street giants get. And I think I actually was in a meeting with Tim Geithner today, and the administration doesn't really oppose that direct lending. They're a little bit concerned about the mechanism. But I'm part of a group, the Congressional Business Owners Caucus, people who have run small businesses before, and there's widespread support there for this kind of approach. If the banks aren't going to lend, and we're already, SBA will guarantee 90% of them, they're still not going to lend, let's let the government do it directly. It's not, most of that money's going to get paid back. We're not going to lose that money, and it can really, really have, I think, a great impact on, again, these small businesses, whether they're shops or restaurants or advertising agencies, you name it. I mean, these are the types of businesses that need this kind of credit to keep going and to generate some more business and more jobs.
I think that part of it makes perfect sense because I got a friend in real estate in New Jersey, and they used to pay, they had to put down 10, 15% in order to start a new project. Now they have to put down 50%. And nobody can start a project because nobody's got 50% of the money. That's crazy, right? So your plan would target that. So that makes sense. Now, how about the other end of it, which is the banks that got all this money and are just taking it in bonuses? Can we go do some regulations over there to make sure? Because I know what they're using the money for. They're using it so that they could have more collateral, so they could make bigger derivatives bets.
Exactly. Well, the financial reform package, which we're going to be voting on this week in the House, I think takes a variety of approaches to that. And I'm really excited about this bill. Barney Frank has done a great job of putting it together because it regulates the derivatives market, all those crazy gambling schemes that AIG and the other big companies put together that provided absolutely no benefit to society, but essentially except putting us at systemic risk of the financial system. So we regulate those. We set up a mechanism so that when these companies get so big and take too much risk, that the government has the authority to break them up so they don't threaten the financial system. And then we actually have some regulations on that require shareholder votes on compensation packages. So we go at it in a lot of different ways at all the problems you mentioned. So I think this is going to be a real victory for the American people. One of the other things I think we ought to watch, and Peter DeFazio from Oregon has a proposal in to levy a transaction fee on massive stock transactions. And this is not for the average mom and pop who's investing in their 401k or their mutual fund, but these are the people who trade millions of shares trying to catch that quarter of a point twist. And it basically, again, provides no good for the economy, but they play these games. Peter's bill would impose a 0.25% tax on that. It yields $150 billion a year, and it would stop a lot of these crazy manipulative trading schemes that, again, don't provide any benefit for society. So the administration is not real big on it right now, but I think there's going to be a lot of public support for doing that.
Well, so that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. Three specifics, and you mentioned two of them. One is the financial transaction fee. The other one is the shareholder, giving the shareholders actual power over the companies that they own, as it should be in capitalism. Maxine Waters introduced that. And then the third is this the loophole for foreign derivatives. It was like basically a $50 trillion loophole that it appears Geithner had put in there. So all three of those, in doing the right thing, do you think it's going to pass? Do you think DeFazio's, Waters, et cetera, are all those going to pass the House?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any question about that. I think there's widespread support for that, for all this whole package. Now, the Senate, again, is a mystery. I mean, it's like Alice in Wonderland over there, but we'll see what happens there. But I'm pretty confident the House is going to pass it by a pretty good margin.
So all those the right regulations get passed through the House, at which point, when it gets blocked up in the Senate, we're going to need the president to step in. Now, he didn't do it on the public option. Flat out, positively, 100% did not do it, right? So now Geithner seems to be fighting you on a couple of these already. It was his loophole in the first place. He doesn't like the financial transaction fee. So what do we think is going to happen here? Is the president going to do the same thing he did with the public option here and back the people with power and money, or is he going to be on our side?
Well, we had Secretary Geithner in the Ways and Means Committee day. He met with the Democrats, and we basically said, you want our help on stuff, you're going to have to stand up and give us cover. You're going to have to take some leadership roles in this. I mean, you being the administration. And the committee was pretty forceful with him. And I think he got the message. The president's got to stand up. I mean, I think he began to the last couple of days. He's taken on the Republicans a little bit and not letting them get away with just kind of blaming the Democrats and him for all this stuff when they created the problem. So I think he's shown a little spine. I think those numbers, the poll numbers, when he's down around 50% now, probably have given him some resolve, and I hope so. He's going to need to do it. I mean, he has the bully pulpit. And the one thing that I mean, your show is obviously very different. You give us time, we can talk about these issues in depth. The vast majority of the media, you're talking about very, very complicated things, and the media can't do them justice. So the simplistic, rhetorical notions that the Republicans are great at are the things that gain traction. So the only thing that can combat that is a really, really strong voice in the White House, and I hope he develops that. And he's the man. He's got to do it.
And that is, as I've said before, the central drama of our times, whether Barack Obama will develop that strong voice. Because if he doesn't step up here, all these things die in the Senate. So
you're absolutely right.
All right. Congressman Johnny Armour, a great conversation. We really appreciate you joining us on the Young Turks.
Good. Great to be with you again. Take care.
Thank you. Young Turks. All right. Back on the Young Turks. Look, one of the things that's so frustrating about this day and age is this day and age, meaning this year, is that we elected the guy that we wanted, and he promised us the things that we agreed with. It's not like I thought, well, you know what? All right, we're going to vote for Obama more, and we're going to hold our nose doing it because some of the stuff he promises isn't that great. Some of it is okay. et cetera, et cetera. No, he promised the right things and then got us all worked up, and we all went and voted for him. And then when he gets into power, not so much. Not so much. I mean, look, you just heard what Congressman Yarmouth said. The problem is that on the public option, Obama didn't step up to bat. I mean, I said it first. I don't want to misrepresent what happened there. You heard it hopefully in the previous segment. And then Congressman Yarmouth said absolutely. And then when it comes to financial reform, the guy he's got to fight is Tim Geithner. Why? Why do we have to fight Tim Geithner? All right. So now let's go over the look. I got a lot more on all this stuff, but I got to do this story. I don't want to run out of time because this, I think, is one of the most important stories of today. Okay. So Dick Durbin has released a letter that he has found that was sent to him. It's a letter from Tanya Wheelis. She's the president and CEO of Arizona Bankers Association. And he's calling it a smoking gun, and it pretty much is. I read the letter. And what it tells other bankers is, hey, listen, look, we do deals with the Republicans. And I don't want to upset those deals. And I don't want to upset my local Republican senator here in Arizona, too. So don't work with the Democrats on anything. Okay? Otherwise, the Republicans are going to withdraw their support. I want to read a quick paragraph from you from the letter that gives you a sense of where she was going with this whole correspondence. So she says, I have contacted the market presidents for each of the three banks, Chase, Wells, and Bank of America, the big guys, right? And explained that in my humble opinion, it's a big mistake to cut a deal with Durbin. Durbin's the number 2 guy for the Democrats in the Senate, right? And he was the one trying to get relief to homeowners, which I'll explain in a second. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. It says she thinks it's a big mistake to cut a deal with Durbin and alienate our senator in Arizona, referring to John Kyle, because she's about to mention him. I also told them that I thought this would drive a wedge in our industry. Kyle has pointedly told them not to make a deal with Durbin and then come looking to Republicans when they need help on something like regulatory restructuring or systemic risk regulation. Okay, so now that's the really important part. Because according to this letter, what Kyle told the bankers is, hey, look, you help us fight to make sure that these homeowners don't get any relief. And I don't know why the banks would be against that. That winds up helping the banks. And then in return, we'll make sure there's no regulation of you. Okay? So let's take both of those issues one at a time. On the relief to the homeowners, what Durbin wanted to do was say, hey, give judges the ability to change the mortgage rates so that he thinks if the judge thinks, in their opinion, that the person has shown an ability to pay their mortgage, but they were stuck with a subprime mortgage that ballooned, that popped up, and they can't pay because the interest rate is out of control, that the judge can say, hey, look, let's put a reasonable interest rate here so that they can actually pay this, so that and that winds up helping everybody, because if the house goes to foreclosure, the bank loses some value on that house anyway, right? And so now you might say that's not right because you got to go with the original contract, and you can have a debate about that either way, but it was to try to help the homeowners and through this crisis that we're having with foreclosures. Now, of course, the banks didn't want it overall, and they were trying to fight it, but they were trying to figure out if they should give in to some degree and do some watered-down compromise. And in the letter, it actually talks about how Durbin has given in to every compromise request. Okay, now Durbin's releasing this letter, but it says it in there, right? They're like, well, this is the best deal we're going to get. I mean, this guy gives in to everything, right? So bless Durbin for releasing it, even though it has that comment in the letter, okay? And so the Republicans were like, no, under no circumstances. We don't care how weak it is. We want to make sure you make every nickel. Or maybe, I don't know, they have some ideological thing of you should never help homeowners, judges should never get involved. Maybe it is ideological. I don't know, but it certainly helps the bankers. But in return, what the Republicans give them is more help to the bankers. Okay, they say, you know what, your systemic risk, all this risk you're taking that blew up the market in the first place, we'll make sure the Democrats don't regulate that. And regulatory restructuring, no. We'll leave the system exactly as it is so you can take all the money again and crash the system again. Now, first you have the quid pro quo. And so the Republicans saying, hey, you play ball with us and we'll make sure you don't get regulated. That's a huge story in and of itself. Number 2 part of it is, hello, Republicans out there, conservatives, you think they're on your side? Your Republican senators, your Republican Party? They're not on your side. They're on the bankers' side. Look at what the letter says. Here's one of the top bankers talking to the other top bankers, I mean, you guys went ballistic over the ClimateGate a couple of emails. Here's an email or a letter in this case, that says, hey, look, the Republicans are trying to make sure that we don't get regulated at all, so we can take all the risks we want. Woohoo! And that blows up on you, the taxpayer. As a conservative, as a Republican, you should be livid about that. But your guys are the ones that are selling you out. And then they turn around and say, oh, yeah, we're against Democrats because they do big government, socialist, Marxist, Maoist, communist, whatever, blah, 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 and they throw a lot of those words at you, and you go, oh, and you go running off in that direction. Well, they're not trying to help you, man. They're trying to take your money to give to the bankers again. And that's what they tell them behind the scenes. That's why this story is so important. If we can just get the Republicans in this country and the conservatives in the country to understand how badly their senators and their representatives are hosing them, we might have a prayer of getting actual bipartisanship. And whether that's against the Republicans or whether that's against the Obama administration and Tim Geithner at the Treasury Department, that's also helping the banks. I don't give a damn. Because I don't, look, some people care because their family is always Democrat or their family was always a Republican or whatever it is. I don't have that. We used to be Republicans, now we're Democrats. I don't really care. I don't even call myself a Democrat because they frustrate me so much. I'm certainly not a Republican because they're crazy, right? And they're not being genuine with you. But what I care about is results. And if that means we got to get rid of Republican senators to get results, then let's do it. If it means we got to get rid of Tim Geithner at the Treasury Department, then let's do it. If it means we got to overpower the Obama administration and make them realize that they're supposed to be on our side and not the bankers' side, let's do it. But I can tell you this for sure. You think the Republican senators are on your side and not on the bankers' side? We have a letter showing you exactly that that is not the case. Wake up. You know what? Just so you can read the whole letter, these days being what they are, I'll tweet it out for you, okay? I'll throw you the link so you can see the actual letter in that link after the show, okay? All right. Now, as I was looking at this story, and yesterday I saw the movie Invictus. We're going to review that on the show a couple of days from now, right? And that's the movie about Morgan Freeman is playing Nelson Mandela, and then you have Matt Damon playing the captain of the South African rugby team, etc. And as I watched that, I mean, of course, Nelson Mandela is a giant, right? And he is so conciliatory to the white minority that was crushing them for decades, that had him in prison in a tiny, tiny prison cell and doing hard labor for 27 years. But he turns around and he's magnanimous enough to say, all right, look, we got to reconcile with them and move on, and even though of the terrible things that have happened to us, we have to forgive them, right? So then I think, well, how can I love that guy, right, and everything he stands for? But yet I get mad at Obama for trying to work with the other side. I said, you know, so that seems to be a contradiction. So I try to work it out in my head as to what was happening there, right? Because I don't want that contradiction, and I don't want to make a mistake. Maybe Obama's being conciliatory, and that's a positive thing, and I can't see it in, you know, the micro picture as we battle daily here. And so that's why I was trying to challenge myself, right? And I realized, no, it's not that. There are two enormous differences. First, Nelson Mandela had one. It was they got democracy in South Africa, so from then on, the white minority was not going to be able to oppress them the way they did under apartheid. That's overwhelming victory, as we did after World War II with Germany and Japan. That's when you could be magnanimous. That's when you can say, hey, you know what, let's rebuild Germany and Japan. Hey, let's reach out to the white people in South Africa that did the apartheid, whether they were part of the government or not, okay? But we're not in that situation. We're in a fight here for our lives, and we're in a heated battle. In the middle of the heated battle, we're turning the other cheek. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And you know what? I went home and I read a little bit more history of Nelson Mandela, and he didn't do that. Do you know that Nelson Mandela was the leader of the armed wing of the African National Congress? And that when they released him from jail in 1990, when they had not toppled apartheid, they said, look, they're releasing you from jail. Are you going to say that you're not going to do any armed resistance anymore? And he said, no, I'm not going to tell you that. I absolutely reserve the right to do armed resistance if this evil apartheid system continues as it is with its state violence against the African majority. So he became magnanimous after the overwhelming victory, which means he was tough, he was a fighter, he was smart, and then he was generous. You're not generous to the other side while you're in the middle of fighting them. So that's point number one as to the difference. And then point number two is, look, if I thought Obama was trying to reach out to the people in the country that don't agree with him, but that have those genuine beliefs, I mind that a lot less. And that's when I realized, hey, you know what it is? That's why I didn't get that mad about the Stupak Amendment. That Stupak Amendment is terrible in the House. It restricts the rights of abortion in effect, in how it affects our insurance. And its effect is worse than some of the other provisions that I'm more angry about. So then I was trying to figure out, why is that the case, right? It's because for most of those people, they actually are pro-life. That's a legitimate position that they have, and that's a legitimate position that a lot of people in the country have. And if you're reaching out to the other side to placate them for their legitimate grievances or their ideological perspective, I think that's what a president should do. My problem is when Obama reaches out to people who do not have genuine ideological interests there or points of view that they're trying to push. What they're trying to do is, Senator Kyle apparently made this deal with the bankers, and that's a perfect example of it. What they're trying to do is screw the American people over, not really give a damn about their own so-called political point of view or ideology, and help the bankers out and take money from us and give it to them. Well, then why would you help those guys? See, that doesn't make any sense, because you're not really helping any real Americans. Real Americans don't want to give their money to the bankers, okay? And if they knew any better, and if they realized the Republican senators were tricking them, they'd actually be on our side. So you're not really reaching out to the other side. You're reaching out to the people that have power, that are, have set up a system where they win and we lose. That's what makes me angry. And I think that's a very important distinction. And, I give that as kind of a guideline for how I think, so that you'll see why I get more angry about certain things and why I'm so frustrated with Obama. Because if he was just reaching out to the other side, it's definitely not the heart of the problem, okay? And I could live with it because he's the president of all of us. That's the important distinction. All right, so now I got to squeeze in Afghanistan here. Hamid Karzai, three important pieces of this. Hamid Karzai comes in and says, oh, yeah, by the way, we'd like you to stay a little longer than 2011, because remember, Obama said July 2011, we begin the withdrawal. So how much longer would you like us to stay? 25 years longer. Come again? He's like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to need 5 years to set up the army, and so we can begin to control it, etc. And then it would be nice if you were around here for another 20 years to give me aid and support. Wow, isn't that nice? Are you kidding me? We're going to stay there for another 25 years? Well, look, the way the Republicans and the Democrats are going, we probably are. Okay? Because nobody ever wants to withdraw from anything. So anyway, then they asked Robert Gates, and he says, well, look, the 20 years is a bit much, but 5 years sounds about right. So what happened in July 2011? Again, that was to pacify their voters. They're not going to do that. They're going to stay there for as long as they possibly can. So 5 more years in Afghanistan to try to stand up that army, which is loyal to Hamid Karzai, who did not win a popular election and is deeply corrupt. Okay, if you like that, go forward. All right, now meanwhile, McChrystal, the head of the troops, says, no, don't worry. Within a year, we're going to reverse the momentum of the insurgency, and we're going to be winning, and they're going to be losing. I just wish somebody would ask them, really? How do we know when we're winning, and how do we know when we're losing? And what the hell that means? And what does it mean to reverse the momentum? It's crazy talk, okay? And meanwhile, Admiral Mullen, who's the head of the whole Joint Chiefs, says, no. Everybody's got a different timeline, 2 years. We're going to have to fight really, really, really hard for 2 years, and then maybe we'll reverse it then. My final conclusion from all this, we're going to be in Afghanistan a long, long time. Young Turks.